Like to welcome you to the Unionville Town Board meeting, November 20th, 24. Call the meeting to order and start with the pledge to the flag, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, to the nation, indivisible. Okay, motion to approve the minutes. I think you had an additional date on here as well, Andrea.
October 2nd and what?
Yeah, I saw that came out. I didn't write that on.
If they're duplicate, I'm sorry, but
September 18th and October 2nd.
Right.
Motion to approve the minutes.
So
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'd like to request an addition to the agenda. The auction results came in for the surplus equipment. I'd like to put that under D as in old business.
Okay.
Motion to do that, please.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our financial report for the month of ending in October. Our general checking account, we have 905,341. Our general savings is 4,920. Miscellaneous receipts are 132,024. General money market fund is 77,850. Our New York class fund is 2,630,328. And the New York class ARPA money is 149,012 remaining. For a total of 3,899,469. Our highway checking account has 48,491. Highway savings is 2,242. Highway money market is 31,989. Highway New York class fund is 70,576. The New York class West Clove Bridge fund is 584,432. And the New York class reserve fund is 149,012 for a total of 866,742 in highway funds. Grand total is 4,786,211. Okay. In light of a number of statements made at the last board meeting, I have some comments to make in regard in the chronology of preparing the 2025 Unionville operating budget. The budget was filed on time, September 30th, and distributed to town board members in addition to being posted on the website. In the email along with the budget proposal, I suggested the board members review it and notify me of any concerns or suggestions of change. I also offered to schedule additional meetings to discuss the budget both in the email and at every board meeting since, if any board member saw the need. No such requests have been made. Our first board meeting after the budget was introduced was 2 days later, and I realized the board members may not have had sufficient time to study the budget in detail, and again made an appeal to let me know of any concerns they may have or if they'd like to schedule additional meetings. There were some preliminary concerns expressed, one being the amount of revenue predicted from sales tax, and another the pay raises contained in the budget. I explained the pay raises were a 3% increase for staff with exceptions and 2% increase for the elected officials. The exceptions to the 3% pay raises were given to employees who have been working outside of their job titles and have not been properly compensated for the work they're doing. These employees are both in our Parks and Recreation Department. Our serving recreation director was raised to the level the previous recreation director had been paid, as was our parks manager. One parks employee has been working in the position of maintenance worker and has not been receiving the pay rate associated with that position. Unionville does not and has not offered longevity raises. The pay rates assigned to these positions have resulted in a base pay plus a cost of living increase through the years. A new employee is entitled to the same rate of pay as a seasoned employee in the same position. It was stated that the salary increases amount to $113,000. The amount resulting from pay raises is $54,500, and that's spread over 22 employees. Additional funds are expended on 2 new positions to be explained in a few moments, and the increase to the recreation director salary was achieved by increasing program user fees. The increases have been achieved by moving funds around within the budget and revenue projections. In preparing the 2025 budget, I discovered several instances where budget lines had been underfunded. I corrected these. I was also informed that our tax assessor data collector, a position that had been in place historically, had been cut previously, and the need for this personnel still exists. I restored this position in the budget. Code enforcement officer expressed that he plans to retire the end of 2025, and we made provisions to hire a deputy code enforcement officer to train for the position in the upcoming year. The code enforcement officer projected this cost could be covered with anticipated increased revenue for 2025. In studying past budgets, I also discovered the anticipated sales tax revenue had been grossly underestimated for several years. I brought this closer in line with actual receipts and still have a remaining comfortable cushion. Several board members expressed concern over this. In response, when actual insurance quotes came in at $34,000 less than what we had projected, rather than reallocate those funds to be spent, I used them against lowering the anticipated sales tax rate to quell the board member fears. At each meeting, several board members have been very critical of the budget I've submitted, but have offered absolutely no suggestions for change. The traditional manner in preparing and amending a budget would be for board members to suggest a change. We discussed among each other and reach an agreement or compromise on what that amendment should be. That has not happened at all in this case. It is the burden of the board members to make these suggestions, not myself. However, in each case, there's been a concern. I've given a suggested option to correct. And again, there's been no effort on behalf of the board members to even consider the suggestions I've offered. At last meeting, 3 members of the board demanded that they receive the Excel files of the budget. I stated this was highly irregular and contested has never been done in the past here in Unionville. One board member insisted they had, but I've confirmed that they have not. I've also spoken with several neighboring towns, and none of them follow that practice, instead following the steps I described previously. I've proposed a lean and solid budget. I've patched holes discovered and improperly compensating our employees, and have covered the recreation budget, including the recreation salary increase, with activity fee registration increases. I've also accomplished this with a 0% levy increase to the residents. This budget has been prepared in accordance with regulations set forth by the New York Comptroller's Office. And I want to thank Sarah Cross, our accountant, for her help in putting this budget together. Move on to board member reports. Councilman Welch.
Since our last meeting, I've been checking into our infrastructure, including our dam down at the end of Furnace Pond. That's been a project that's been ongoing. We've been waiting for water levels to drop to be able to do boring test on the dam. And my concern is whether we're going to do boring tests now while the level is low. Because when we wanted to do it last year, the water was way too high. It cost, I think, $7,000 or $8,000 to pump it low enough to do the test. So I just want to keep that foremost in our minds that we've got to address the dam issue. The other infrastructure issue is the bridge on West Globe Mountain Road. As you mentioned earlier this year, we received $584,000 from FEMA. That money keeps sitting in the account. I want to see that we move forward and correct the problem with that bridge by replacing it, since we've gotten the money from FEMA.
The engineer is putting a plan together for that.
Good.
He hasn't completed it yet. That's the stage that's in.
All right.
I don't know if you saw my email in response to your email earlier about the dam.
I didn't see it yet.
I spoke with the engineer that was involved in that project earlier this year. And I asked about what this core drilling was about. And his response was that the core drilling is to determine whether or not the dam is salvageable. or whether it would need a complete dismantle. He's 95% certain that the core results are going to show that the dam is not salvageable. I spoke with a second engineer to get secondary options. He's going to be preparing us a proposal on what those options are. And he gave me the same opinion, that these core drillings are going to be expensive and tell us very little.
All right, I just wanted to keep that foremost, so
Right.
we know what we're doing. Thank you.
Councilman Cardellani?
So I've been working on the budget for the last couple of weeks. And I've been going through line by line to see where we can make cuts, what we can do on the budget to shore up some of the numbers. So we'll discuss that a little bit later on. In response to some of the comments that were just made in regards to the budget and what other board members have discussed, there was plenty of discussion in regards to what to do with the budget. And all we got for a response was, well, then figure it out yourself. It's the only response that we got when we were trying to discuss line by line of what items should be done and what shouldn't be done. So that's why the spreadsheet helped to be able for me to figure out what I can do and what we can do as a board to be able to make the budget be more comprehensive and I think to be more streamlined. So we'll discuss that a little bit later on when we get down to the budget discussion. But that's what I've been working.
Thank you, Councilman Derlin.
Yeah. Once again, I've been working on the budget as well. I've talked to Pat at length about some of the changes of the budget and some of the things he's discovered and we've discovered. And so I guess we'll be talking about that shortly. The dam, while I do agree that it is expensive to do, I know we've spoken about that at length as well. And the cost to either replace or take down the dam is very expensive, either way we go. So I just, I know we've talked about doing those core drills for years and years and years. I still think it's prudent to do those, just to be sure before we go and spend $1 million on an opinion. That's all I got.
Okay, Councilman Gibney?
Attended the equestrian year-end award ceremony this weekend. It was a lovely event. Loretta Ryan and her staff did a wonderful job as she always does. I'd like to remind the residents that a burn ban is still in effect. The lack of rain that we had, we are due for some rain, but it's probably not going to be enough. So please refrain from burning until further notice. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add, the smoke that we experienced today throughout town is coming from a large woods fire in Massachusetts. So yeah, the fire departments here have been crazy chasing these smoke calls, but they're originating in Massachusetts.
Yeah, great
So
topic.
you can join us here at the end of the table. Town clerk report.
Thank you. We are getting ready for cycling sales season 2025, and we hope to be selling those as of the first week of December. That's all I have.
I didn't get a highway department report. Yeah, he's out of town, so we will buy that one. Recreation department.
On Wednesday, December 4th, right before the next board meeting, we will host a cookie swap here at Town Hall from 5 to 7 p.m. Residents and friends can join in on sharing their cookie recipes and sweet treats with the community. If you are interested in joining, please email myself at recreation@unionvaleny.us by the end of the day, December 3rd, so we can ensure that you have a spot at a table and so we can keep you in touch about any additional information regarding the event. We recommend participants bring at least 24 of your treats to share. Make sure to bring yourself a container so you can also take some goodies home. And we please ask that you let our staff know if your baked goods contain any allergens like peanuts, dairy, tree nuts, either ahead of time via email, or you can tell us the day of so we can make sure that your stuff is at a separate table and properly labeled so all the other attendees know. Placements, winners will be announced at 6:30 p.m. that evening. Registration has been open for our grand illumination event scheduled for Saturday, December 7th from 4:30 to 6. This event is free for residents and $5 per family for non-residents. Families and friends can enjoy warm drinks and snacks, crafts, and a visit from Santa. At 6 p.m., we will all be invited outside into the park to enjoy watching the holiday lights turn on and start off the winter season. We will also once again be accepting unwrapped toy donations on behalf of the Hope Through Pope toy drive. These toys will be enjoyed by the Children's Home of Poughkeepsie. The donation box is currently up here in Town Hall, and it will be moved over by Santa during the event. And then more information for both of these events can be found on our social media pages and the Parks and Rec website. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Welch, would you like to read the park report, please?
Sure. Parks report for November 20th. We have continued clearing leaves and down trees from trails and have started preparing for snow if it comes. The lift we rented has been returned after having it for a week. We were able to hang lights on the main park building, pole barn, town hall, and number 11 rental house, as well as trim multiple trees around the park. Seasonal bathrooms are closed, and the porta potty will be moved down into the park once the soccer season concludes this Saturday. Many of the Christmas lights were put up around the park are older and failing. We have started to go through them and replace sections that don't work as well as lights should. We will be putting lights and putting up lights and preparing the grand illusion for the next few months.
Okay, thank you. I did receive an animal control report and I neglected to print it. I'll bring that to the next meeting. Library report.
Thank you, everyone. So regarding the follow-up after the election. So regarding the recent ballot proposition, the library trustees had extensive conversations with 3 different attorneys, both before and after the election. 2 of the attorneys are referendum or ballot proposition experts. The 3rd attorney is a library attorney. All 3 attorneys were on the same opinion about the recent ballot proposition. Due to the way the proposition was worded, it was considered a non-binding survey question, which has no legal premise or reference to any statute. It was not clear to some of the voters that a library already existed. It was unclear to voters what happened if they voted no, and it was also unclear to voters what happened if they voted yes. And it is in no way, shape, or form a premise for abolishing the library. The trustees have discussed the matter with the Library Development Division in Albany, and we're happy to receive their support and encouragement. We see our challenge as needing to get away from the politics surrounding this library so we can focus on building the programs and services that an adorable rural library in a beautiful park can offer. In addition, we have shared that the library portion of the budget does not raise the residents' taxes. The trustees have voted not to request more than the $50 per capita for the next 5 years. With this good faith effort, we're showing our commitment to the fiscal responsibility of to our residents. I also wanted to follow up because I know spam can be our worst enemy when it comes to email. To an email that I sent to the supervisor on November 13th, 2024, requesting that you effect the transfer of all library funds from the town's bank account to the library's bank account immediately. Under New York State Ed Law 259, it specifies that all money received from taxes and other public sources for the support of a public library or a free association library or a cooperative library system shall be paid over to the treasurer of such library or cooperative library system upon the written demand of its trustees. Again, please consider this our formal request for all encumbered and unspent funds from the 2023 and 2024, as well as all budgeted funds for the 2025 and into the future. We also continue to work on completing the library registration application. And as always, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us at trustees@uvlibrary.org. Thank you.
I have a question for you real quick. I know there was an email sent to request a meeting. Do you know if everybody's responded to that yet?
No, they have not. I responded separately but I think only one of the other parties has, and yourself.
I think the rest of the board should probably, if you haven't seen the email, respond to it, try to set up a meeting.
Yeah.
Try to set up a meeting with the town board, so it's gonna be pretty important. And then also, I mean, the library funds, anybody else on that board want to discuss that now, the letter?
The letter,
Yeah,
her request.
yeah, about the request.
Now, our
It's-
council advised to table this until January meeting.
Can't really table a budget issue.
It's not a budget issue.
So
They're asking for
Oh,
transfer of
encumbering the
funds.
funds? Okay.
But state law requires a check
Yeah.
to ask that to.
yes, right, as because of the charter, we are requesting the funds, which is part of the state law.
Have to be done before the end of the year.
I don't know the answer to that. I would need to look at the status of the library in terms of its chartering, whether that was completed. I haven't seen that yet. There was an election, there will be a change in the town board in January. Concerned that actions taken here at the end of the year might just change to January. And I do think that's something the town should think about as they act.
In regards to already encumbered funds.
Those
That's-
funds were not encumbered, dropped.
That I will have to look at in terms of whether the library is fully chartered. Been somewhat familiar with education, section 259, but I'll read it again and see what advice I should give about budgeting and turning funds.
If you could get back to us by the next meeting.
I would say December, is that third?
Fourth, yeah.
Fourth, yes.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment on agenda items? Anyone? Yes, name and address, please.
Good evening. Hi, my name is Paula Young Bora. I live at 23 Burbank Club Road in Union Vale. I've lived here for almost 3 years. And I have recently volunteered to assist the library effort. I came to the United States when I was 6. I speak 5 languages and I learned English because I went to the library. So I'm a big fan of libraries and I cannot see anyone here not being a fan of a library. This is a tiny little boutique library, as I like to call it. And I researched this before I even attempted to sign up. And what I found was a lot of misleading information, kind of word salad that was not clear. Was the library going to raise my taxes? Was it not? Some of my friends directed me to the page of the Republican Committee and to town. And there was information there that made me feel like if I voted yes for the library, I would be putting my home and household in debt. And then I looked into it further and it said, no, obviously not. It would cost me $50 per household if we voted for the library. So why would I vote against it? It was very misleading what I read. It was a little pink piece of paper. And I thought, this isn't actual. So I did more research and I found out that it would raise us each $50 a head. Now, perhaps there are people in this community that can't afford that, but they have little kids. The library provides newspapers and internet access for people who don't have that at home. That's very expensive. It provides a meeting place for people who want to do things that are good for this community. It provides little kids and their moms a place to go to read. I cannot imagine that this became a political football, but it did. Friends of mine who are Democrats told me to vote against it. And I asked them why. And they reiterated this false information that came from somewhere that said that we were all going to be bankrupted by this little tiny sweet library. I attended a meeting there and I listened to the seniors and I understand being mostly a senior myself, even though I don't look it. And I understood their concerns about co-opting the space, but I also understood that they have that library space 1 day a week for a few hours.
I gotta ask you to wrap it up, please. We have a 3-minute time limit.
I'm so sorry. You didn't tell me that when I started. Anyway, my point is this. I do believe that we should have not had a referendum that was so misleading in our most recent election. I think that was a really rotten move for someone who had an agenda, or people who had an agenda turn the library down. I think if people had the opportunity with the correct facts, they would absolutely vote to have a library, as every community should. Plus, why should we be paying
Ma'am,
other
gotta have you wrap
libraries?
it up, please.
I will. Why should we, please don't raise your voice.
No, I
I'm
need
not
you to
raising
wrap it up,
mine.
please.
Yes, I will.
It's not fair
Why
to
should
anyone
we be
else.
paying? I don't see a queue of people waiting to speak, sir.
Well, we're gonna find out
Why
here in a
should
moment.
we be paying other libraries money to run our library? It's absurd. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Name,
Hi.
name and address, please.
Eileen Pucci, 27 Hoofprint Road. I would like to remind everybody here that the people of Unionville resoundingly chose that we should not build a library in the town. And I would like to also remind everybody that we have a library. We have multiple libraries. We have Beekman Library, which has fantastic services, a fantastic site, fantastic everything. We've got Millbrook Library, we've got LaGrange Library, we've got Dover Library. And if you compare what this library will wind up being to say a similar population, I would say Millbrook's a similar population. They pay their operation costs about $300,000 or $400,000 a year. Now you can't tell me that that money is going to magically appear. I mean, that money has to come from somewhere to run the library. And where else can it come from but taxes? And I don't wish my taxes to be raised to pay for a library when we already have a library.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name's Amy Harsty. I live at 39 Liberty Way. Sorry to jump off this library topic onto another agenda item, but I see that further down you have discussion of large hall rental and the RD10 code change. I am a professional wedding and event planner with 18 years of event experience. I know I've previously emailed the board on this topic. I know that this is a zoning board meeting and not a planning board meeting, and site plans are a different animal all in themselves, but you are readdressing the law and the code for what it would mean to have a catering facility and or event hall meeting place in the town of Unionville. The current code, I believe, states that there needs to be at least 100 acres for the land that a catering facility takes place on. My primary objection to this code change here tonight is the fact that the new catering facility code, the new large hall rental code, is reducing that acreage requirement to 50 acres. I'd like to just point out a few local venues and what their acreage is in residential areas. The closest being the Lynx, which is 200 acres. Troutbeck, 250 acres, Glenmere, 150 acres, Wildflower Farms, 140 acres, Cedar Lakes Estate, 500 acres, Indian Ridge, 300 acres, Lion Rock Farm, 600 acres. During my wedding at Lion Rock Farm this past September, I had the local residents at the edge of the property with their decibel readers complaining that the noise was too loud. Which the police department that was called that evening definitely agreed with. The noise was too loud, even with its 600-acre property. There is currently a plan in place for a catering facility to be placed right at the top of Buzzkill Hill, which will overlook the entire valley, and the noise will spread well beyond just my neighborhood across the street. I think that this is an issue that the town needs to be aware of. I think this is an issue that will affect anyone who lives within a few miles of Buzzkill Road. In addition to the noise, the traffic counts for these facilities they're proposing are over a 200-person facility. A 200-person facility does not mean 200 cars coming at a steady pace throughout the day. It means 200 cars, buses, delivery trucks and trailers coming in all at the same time, which is going to create significant traffic on Brusco Road, which is already a dangerous road with a very dangerous intersection at the corner of 55 and Brusco Road. I think that this is a serious issue for the town. I think that this is a serious issue for its residents, and I formally object to this change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Name and address, please.
Vicky Pittman, 1912 Brusco. I found out about the change in the zoning only recently, and so don't really have my brain all working on it, but I was very concerned about it. I came in today to find out a little bit about it, found out it would be postponed for 2 weeks, which gave me a little bit of breathing space to try to find out. I went online. I read through it. I tried to figure out what the change in the zoning was, like how it would proceed. I didn't know about this, and it practically touches my property, and so I got really jacked up about it. And I'm wondering, like, do I need to pay more attention to what's going on in the town? Am I not a very good citizen? I used to be able to go on the television on Channel 22 and sort of check in and find out what was going on. And, I just like feel like I got hit over the head by all of this. It really concerns me. And, I just wish that there was a way that the town could, I'll admit, like, maybe I don't keep as informed as I should about what's going on, but you got the budget tonight. Is there anything in there for keeping citizens better informed? Like, I sort of feel like I should have been notified maybe about the change in the RD10. I don't know. But I'm really like, and really wish that I had some more information and not feel like I'm panicked. I'm panicked by some of the stuff that I've found out today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll mention that I can provide both of you with copies of the proposed code change. And we're gonna be likely to schedule a public hearing at the next meeting on December 4th. So you can come and speak then as well. I'm also working with Optimum to get our meetings and in addition added on in our planning board meeting, the ZBA meeting broadcast on the local channel again. So that's something I'm working on. Any other public comments? Yes.
I agree with Eileen. We have gone over this again and again. 5 or 6 years ago, when this first came up, the supervisor then said that she would abide by the majority of what the people wanted to do. The people time and time again have said, we do not want to have a library in Unionville. We could be using right now a number of libraries, not just 4 of them that are common that we use, but a number of them for $90,000 right now. But somebody decided, the board decided to stop going with the Mid-Hudson Library Service. And that's a real disservice to our community. We don't need a little boutique library. We can lose anyone that we want, and we don't have to be paying $227,000 or $250,000, which will eventually get to be double that. So I really think you should listen to the people. Over 66% said they did not want to have a library in Unionville. And that's what people on the town board should follow. You're supposed to do what the people want, not be sycophants of the previous supervisor.
Thank you.
Just want to respond that everybody keeps referencing a referendum, but keeps forgetting there was one before it.
It was not a referendum.
That was on the ballot that said not to send money to the Hudson Library. There was a referendum.
That's different.
Folks, that's, yeah, we can't have the back and forth, please. Kevin?
Chestnut Ridge Road. In the last election, 67% of the town voted against having a library. It was a proposition. It was not a referendum. It was legal. It went through our town clerk. It went through our lawyer. It went through the election people, and it was not poorly written. It was a very simply worded proposition, and it will stand. The library trustees have presented to the town smoke and mirrors. They have a charter, so they say, okay, it's not a complete charter, okay? And we've never seen it. So now we're told that 2 lawyers and another lawyer have an opinion, okay? But we don't see anything in writing. I would love to see that copy. Okay, but in any event, when the people of our town think of a library, they think of Millbrook Library, Beekman Library, Sharon Library in Connecticut, which quite a few people use, the LaGrange Library, not a glorified reading room that we have. Some people have been appalled when they saw what we have and that we're calling this a library. It took the town of Beekman 30 years to get the funds to build their library. The town of Beekman has far more money to use than our town has or will ever have. Unless, of course, we discover gold below Time War Park, which is not likely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Yester's area. I live at 2536 Wingdale Mountain Road, Oakway, New York, 12570. I've been a resident in this town for over 50 years. The library. I really felt for you when you said you didn't know what goes on in our town. And when I felt that way, I came down to the town and I made an appointment to speak with our former supervisor at the time. And our former supervisor shared with me her binder and her library plans. At that time, she also shared with me that because of the cost of joining the Mid-Hudson Library Association was not what she wanted, this was her plan. Our former supervisor is no longer in office. The people of the library charter are chartered by our town, sort of like a 4-H club. The CCE office has to give permission. Our town has to give permission, and that charter is under that permission. Well, the people of our town are not all for this idea. You guys can say it's not going to raise the taxes here today, but I was at your library meeting. You specifically said, oh, the value of a library will increase the value of homes, will increase the value of property. Well, if we increase the value of our home and our property, our taxes are going to go up. It's going to happen. To buy a suitable collection for a library will take years and exceed a $200,000 or $250,000 budget. It's going to happen. I took the time to meet with the library people in Albany myself. I also took the time to review with other library directors here in Dutchess County, as well as the Mid-Hudson Library. It is a lengthy process to even get a new library into the Mid-Hudson Library system. It's not like, hey, we got a library, we got some books, and we want to join the club. It's gonna take time. The money that the library would get comes from the town people, comes from our town budget. The town budget comes from the people. The people, whether you guys particularly like the question or not like the simple question, say, we're not for it. There's all these other libraries. We don't want to do this. And I'm sorry that it hurts some people's feelings. Sadly, it just happens. I am not a proponent for this library. And it's not that I don't like libraries. I traveled the globe growing up. I went
Leah, I
to
gotta ask you to
other
wrap it up,
libraries.
please.
But at the end of the day, the library here in Unionville is not the right choice to make.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. We will move on to new business. The Recreation Department had rented out the large hall. And I wasn't aware that this was going on during early voting. And they had a restroom backup,
Yeah.
which
very
caused some problems for them. I wanted to entertain a proposal to refund them their rental fee.
I think that's an excellent idea because this girl's wedding was ruined by.
Yeah, and what I'm gonna do going forward is work with the recreation director to incorporate salary for maintenance people to be on duty when these events are
Mhm.
going forward, so that we can prevent something like this from happening again.
I think it's a great idea, but I remember, Steve, I'm pretty sure at that meeting you asked if this party was gonna be during early voting and they said no. That's why I think it.
I don't know if it was this
shocking.
particular party or not.
Yeah, it was a wedding, of course.
Yeah, because this was booked back in August, so I think that was brought up. I think I remember.
I don't
saying
think in
it was.
August we had,
We didn't know.
we didn't know that we were gonna have.
Oh, I know. I mean, saying this was booked in August. The wedding was booked in August.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think they said there wasn't any, so that's.
It's just an unfortunate coincidence.
is.
But I think, refunding the young lady's money would be very appropriate. I'd like a motion to do so.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, old business. We'll start with the RD10 code change and I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
Yeah. What is?
Oh, turn that mic toward us. Yep.
In light of the comment about the proposal and also understanding what's going on in town hall, just to explain what is happening here. There was a local law introduced to consider this zoning change. There was a public hearing on it. Some comments were received from Dutchess County Planning. You got a comment letter from your planning board, Unionville Planning Board. Fairly minimal comments, but important enough to I think suggest some changes to the law, some improvements to the proposed law. And then during the discussion at the public hearing, although I'm not sure I don't recall whether there was public comment there actually from the public, but in any event, there was discussion among the board about some tightening that you'd like to see. So those changes were all made. And what the law says, in the interest of being transparent for the public, is that if you make material changes to a proposed local law, you reintroduce the clean law as it's now being proposed, and you set a new public hearing so the public can be heard on it. My recommendation, so that's all that is suggested to happen tonight, just for benefit of the public, is further consideration. There'll be new opportunity to discuss the code. My suggestion would be you could schedule the public hearing for December 4th. That's enough time to notice it properly. That gets you your public comment as soon as possible. And I think significantly prior to the Christmas holiday, that people aren't completely distracted by, what's going on there. I will note, though, the county has 30 days to respond to the referral, because this new proposed local law will then get referred again to Dutchess County. On the last go around, I contacted Dutchess County because you had a tight time frame there as well. and they were gracious enough to get us their comments sooner than that, and they may well do so again. If they do, it could be proposed that night after the public hearing for consideration for adoption. If the board chooses to do that. If not, you would simply put it off. You could close the public hearing, but you would put off action on it until the next meeting in December. So that's what is in front of you here. And there's a blank in the resolution for the date of the public hearing, and I'm suggesting that it be December.
I have a question.
Yeah.
At the public hearing, if residents come up and we find that some of the things that they bring up necessitate changes to the law that we have here, we can make changes that night, or do we have to re-publicize it, re-get it out, and wait for the county's comments back again?
You can suggest the changes that night and direct me to make them, but you'd put it out again. Yeah. If they're material, if they're nominal changes, then, which will just be a discussion you'll have to have that night, then you could still act. If not, it would be the most prudent thing to put it off again, see a clean copy, and take a look at it.
Yeah, so if we changed any numbers on setbacks, acreages, things that were brought up like that, those would obviously be
Right,
substantial
right.
changes, which we have to renotice.
I do think it's worth noting that, and again, this is largely for the benefit of the public as well. The board may be aware of this too. You know, currently the way the zone, I know that part of the intent of the interest by the board in considering something like this is actually to exercise some control over the potential impacts of facilities like this on properties in the RD10. And your RD10 zone already allows some fairly significant as of right uses like kennels and golf courses and things which in some instances can be at least as intense, if not more. So I do think it's important for people to understand that the intent of the law is actually to design a specifically tailored sort of use that would fit on properties like this. Whether or not that seems prudent to you guys is exactly what you're going to decide when you consider this, but I just want the public and the board to to note that, because this is a comment that's come up before, and I think it's a valid comment that you should pay attention to.
And to piggyback on that, it's still a special permitted use.
Right,
which
it
is
has to
important.
be especially reviewed. If approved, it would be a use that would have to be especially approved by your planning board with a set of criteria that put it in a certain envelope and allow the board, all special permits by state law, allow that board to put other conditions on it if it seems reasonable. Well, and by the way, any of those processes would also be subject to public, individual applications would be subject to public review, public comment, et cetera.
And those special permits would be designed to have a minimal impact on the area surrounding.
That's the idea.
Right.
I know it's a substantial text, but it's meant and designed, and the attempt is to write it so that actually what it is limiting in many respects. That's, things like no illuminated signs and the way that internal passageways have to be designed, the sort of building that can be put there. So it's meant to have some controls on it to address some of the concerns that might be of concern to neighbors.
I just want to add in, I was chairman of the planning board for 4 years and on the planning board for 8 years. And I will tell you that in our code, a lot of our special permit codes are nothing like this. This one is very detailed compared to what is in our code. And we'll talk about it at the public hearing, but if you look at the rest of our code, it's nothing like this in the amount of detail that's provided.
Anyone else? I guess at this point, I'll entertain a motion to schedule a public hearing for December 4th at 7 p.m. here.
Make the motion.
A second on that?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Gary, thank you.
Could I just ask?
Yes.
Are you looking for the town board to adopt this resolution of reintroduction tonight? Yes. I see.
No,
I think you can waive a formal reading the entire resolution, but I think there should be with the date of December 4th.
Mhm.
Andrew?
Okay, Councilman Cardelemi,
Yes.
Councilman Welsh.
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier,
Aye,
Councilman McGivney, Councilman Derland.
Aye.
thank you. Right, right, yep, I appreciate you coming. Okay, we had previously discussed replacing the constable car. And the attorney here has drawn up a resolution for us to that effect. Don't know, do you know what number we're up to now?
I'm not sure. I'll do it. I'll put it in correctly when I publish it.
Okay. So, Councilman Cardelemi, you want to read the resolution or any discussion on this? Well, let's do the resolution and then we'll come to the discussion.
All right, authorizing the purchase of constable / building department replacement vehicle. Whereas the town board of the town of Unionville determined that the constable vehicle needs to be replaced based upon its age, condition, and reoccurring needs for repairs. Whereas the town board considered possibly replacing vehicles and dedicated to seek a model F-150 4x4 crew cab short bed with a V6 engine with additional specifications. Whereas the town board issued a bid request through NYSOGS to nearly 20 qualified dealers and 4 proposals were received. Whereas the town board approved the motion accepting one of the proposals and authorizing a purchase at the meeting held on November 6, 2024, with the intention that a formal written resolution would follow. And whereas this document constitutes the formal written resolution, and whereas this is a type 2 action for particular purposes, now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Unionville hereby ratifies this action taken by motion on November 6, 2024 meeting and confirms the authorization of the purchase of a 2025 Ford F-150 4x4 Super Crew pursuant to the bid response submitted by Easton Ford in the amount of $43,346.59, with payment being made from budget line 3620.2 or any other appropriate budget line. Be it further resolved that the supervisor and the bookkeeper are authorized to execute any documents, take any actions reasonably necessary to pay the sum due and obtain the said.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Cardelemi.
Oh, yes, second on,
I'll second.
second and discussion. Any discussion on this? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cardelemi,
Yes.
Councilman Welsh.
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier,
Aye,
Councilman McGivney,
Aye.
Councilman Derland.
Yes.
thank you. Okay, so here we are at the budget. As I mentioned earlier, today, I haven't had any suggestions of change. And I haven't had any, correspondence to such either. So we're at the point,
I think Matt had a lot of suggestions at this meeting.
Here we go. I got a
well,
list.
the way that was supposed to have gone was to make the motion to make those changes and then we vote on them. And, that never occurred.
So we're gonna start some discussion tonight. So I've been able to actually now go through the budget, see where we can tweak it and be able to make some changes. First of all, I'm gonna start off with agreeing with you in regards to the sales tax. The sales tax estimate, I feel is, after doing some research, is adequate. And actually, the county is budgeting more in their sales tax budget. They're actually budgeting an increase in sales tax over what they've received this current year. So this, after more research into that, I think that your revenue line for sales tax is good to keep in at the 450,000. Some of the revenue lines that I disagree with are recycling center, interest, property rental, and building fees. So as I stated at the last meeting, what I was going to do is I went back 3 years within revenues that the town has had to be able to budget conservatively on where we could be, especially for things that we do and don't control. So some of the things that I suggest changing actually is upping the revenue on the recycling center. Recycling center was budgeted at 150,000 in revenue. On your budget, proposed budget, you had 137,300. The average comes out over 5 years to 145,000. So I actually suggest we increase the revenue of the recycling center.
Can I interject?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been speaking with the manager over at Recycle, and our membership there has dropped off. So that was the reasoning behind the budget numbers there.
I can tell you, being in the industry, that recycling center revenue, I will suggest, is probably going to go up within the changes that has happened in this county, specifically with the one hauler
Yeah, Royal Card.
that is allowed has been sold. So I would probably disagree with you, because I think more people are gonna go away from traditional garbage pickup and go to recycling center, because when a company like that, a local owned company, is bought out by a national company, they tend to increase rates very steadily and very fast, which then causes people to try to cut. And the recycling center is a more cost-effective way for people to come in and get rid of their trash. So I would disagree with the fact of the trend of the way the recycling center should start heading in the next year. Interest. We've been at 80,000 last year. You budgeted going up to 140. My revenue that I put it at is about 115. Again, reasoning for going to 115, average of the last 3 years, it is an increase of where we had it budgeted in 2024. Reason again behind some of that is we've taken a lot of money out of some of these funds. And I see that a lot of that's probably going to be continuing with infrastructure repairs. I know that's something that you ran on, that you want to continue infrastructure repairs. I agree with that. So we're going to start to deplete our savings, which is going to also deplete our interest income, as well as the feds are predicting dropping rates of interest at least 4 times within the next year.
Just dropped it last week or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, so, to put us at the same exact level of where we think interest is this year to next year doesn't make sense. I think it puts us in a bad situation. That's why I think I do agree that it should be higher than what was budgeted in 2024, which was 80,000. But I think we should go up to 115 to be a little safe, to give us a little cushion in case that happens. Because what's important to know is that obviously this revenue is what keeps our taxes down. We don't hit revenue goals, taxes go up. So if we don't budget conservatively, we're not gonna be able to hit that. Property rental. 79,000 it was budgeted in 2024. You put it up to 90. We are on pace to probably be around 100. Would probably have been even higher if we had the cell phone tower going on, which we don't know if it's going to happen again next year. We hope that that will continue to increase that property rental line, which again, for budget conservatively at 75,000, we should easily be able to hit that goal. If we do get the cell phone tower, we should surpass that and be able to have more revenue. Building fees is the last part of revenue that I think is something that needs to be addressed. We were budgeted in 2024 for 109,000. We are on pace for probably about 150,000 this year. I know you want to predict it up to 220 because of the one project that could potentially be approved. But again, not under our control and on a slippery slope right now with that one project. So I put it at 155,000, which again, put us right where we're at now, with just regular buildings. And again, another revenue line that we could potentially exceed to be able to put some more money back into the general fund and keep taxes down next year as well. So those are my revenue projections that I think should be changed and updated in the budget. One of the main reasons why I think the revenue, we need to look at it, is because this year there's been no increase in revenue, no new increases in new revenue. While there's been increases in regular revenue that we've had over years, there's been no new revenue streams added to the town base. And I think that's what we need to make sure continues to happen, or else we're gonna have to continue to increase taxes on residents if we don't come up with new revenue streams in this town. So there hasn't been many that have been added this year. And I think that's something that next year you guys need to focus on what we're gonna do to add different revenue streams into this budget so that we don't have to increase taxes. So in regards to that, one of the things that came out as a glaring revenue line that seems to be missing its goals is TGTT. TGTT is on pace to have its worst year that it's been in existence. And I think we're only up to 9,000 and change this year. And I hope the revenues have gone down, which I haven't been able to confirm yet, on how the revenues have gone down, but it seems like it's not working. I think it's something that we need to look at and try to figure out either how to make it better, or if the schools programs that they put in have just knocked us out of the water and we're not even competitive anymore. So that's almost a $30,000 line item budget for expenses that I think that's something that needs to be addressed and looked at and managed. To be able to see if it's even viable to have TGTT anymore. As much as I know there's probably kids that love it and the recreation department probably loves having the kids there, I think that it's something that we need to actually look at to see if financially it makes sense for us to continue. It's failing right now at this point. So, revenue wise, that's where I predict that we need to be and changes that we need to make to the budget. While we're cutting things, that is gonna also now make us have to go into the expenses to cut some stuff out there. As I expressed at the last meeting, first thing I looked at is town board members. I don't think town board members need a raise. I, again, don't think it's a job that anybody does for the pay. If we're, gonna go through this budget and potentially cut other people's raises, the town board should definitely not get a raise if other people aren't getting raises that we don't feel they can have because we don't have either the revenue or the ability to give.
Yeah, it's not a job you do because
Exactly. So I put down in, the expenses for town board members, which is line item 1010, to stay the same, exactly, at a 0% increase. Also, the next line item I went to were the justices. Again, a completely failing department every year that we have because our town has no way to, or ability to write tickets. Just, we're not on its Taconic, we're not on a heavy travel road. So I think giving the justices a raise of almost $4,000 a year between the two justices just doesn't make sense at this time for our court. It will never make sense. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to find justices that want to do the job just to do the job because, they want to give back to the community because it's always going to be a failing department. In turn with that, I did give the court clerk a raise. I think the court clerk deserves a raise. The court clerk, I didn't give as high of a raise as was suggested by your budget. You were going from the court clerk making roughly 15,000 to about 18,500, almost in round numbers, a little less than 18,500. I put it down to a raise of 4.7% to 15,600. So about a $700-800 raise a year to be able to do that. And I looked around in neighboring towns of court clerks, and they're all making right around the same. Again, it's a 15 hours a week job. It's a part-time job at $20 an hour, which is more than what you get paid working at any other part-time job. So I know it's again, another thankless job that nobody really pays attention to, a court clerk, but it's a 4.7% increase, and hopefully maybe sometime in the future, our court can somehow start to make some money, but probably never. Next thing I went to was the supervisor budget estimate. So supervisor line is 1220. 1220 obviously that's the supervisor salary. Again, another job that I don't think needs a pay increase. So I kept that at exactly the same. And one of the things I found interesting is there's the confidential secretary, which is a budget of $20,000 a year. Now, on one of the raises that was sent over to us, there was a raise for the bookkeeper for being secretary to the supervisor. And that was part of one of their job
Wait a minute,
duties.
can you explain that, please?
So on one of the papers that was sent to us for the line items of raises, here, I'll get it right now. There was a reason for a raise was because of extra duties that the bookkeeper was doing. And one of them was secretary to the supervisor. Let's see if I can find it right here. So one of those were, it's right here, salaries per job, employee raises. So one of the reasons why they were, why the finance department was getting a 22% increase was assistant to supervisor and highway bookkeeper, full-time, not part-time, 30 years of experience. So
Right, there's nothing in there about the secretary to supervise.
yeah, so
That's
it's
not
assistant
happening.
to the supervisor. So it's just a wordplay. So what I thought would be a little bit of a smarter idea, since the position is vacant, why won't we take that $20,000 that's just sitting there on the budget line and give that to the bookkeeper to make up for the raise? So if we take that line up for 20,800, put it down to 10,000 and give that to the bookkeeper, that essentially gives the raise and also gives her as the assistant to the supervisor, same thing as a secretary to the supervisor. So that gives us an extra $10,800 of expenses.
So
that we
how do
can
I
now
hire a
use.
secretary then?
You haven't had a secretary all year. You need one now?
No, I have had a secretary up until recently.
When's that?
A month or so ago?
Because so far in the budget, we've spent $826 in June up to.
Well, I don't know how that was tracked, but we passed that resolution to combine the two positions. And that person then left. And I have not been able to fulfill that position since. But I am in need of a secretary.
No, I mean, that's why I said, so I mean, she is basically, so
And I can explain what's going on with our accountant as well. She is a CPA. And she is working full-time versus the previous accountant who was working part-time. There's additional hours that are involved there in keeping the books. And that was the reason that the previous accountant left, that she was not able to perform the duties that were necessary with the hours that she had available to her, herself personally to do this job. So that's where those increases are coming from.
I mean, that's not what I've heard, so.
Well, I don't know where you're getting your information, but that's what's going on.
So you are requesting a raise for being assistant to the.
No, actually, I'm requesting that she get paid for the hours that she's working.
Well, the additional responsibility listed on the papers that we're giving to us is assistant to supervisor, specifically why it's.
Well, she is appointed by me as the supervisor's accountant. That is the definition of the position.
So that's my request of giving, instead of giving the $11,000 rate predicted, to give it the 10,000 for the supervisor secretary position. So then the next line item, which is the bookkeeper, is to leave her salary the same and using the $10,000 from supervisor secretary, give her the raise to be able to do that. The next line item was going over the tax collector's raise. Tax collector effectively got a raise by losing Saturday hours. So I don't see that the tax collector would need a raise by effectively already getting a raise by cutting hours. Which also I don't see reflected in here because the tax collector is a rate-based job. So the budget stayed exactly the same. Losing hours should have seen that budget line item go down, and it didn't. So something's not right there, and that needs to be looked into. The budget officer, again, $3,162, I think should stay the same. And I honestly think from all the work with the bookkeeper, I think that next year you guys need to look into making sure that the bookkeeper is the budget officer, because it seems like she did most of the work in regards to this budget. She was the one that got me all the information back as soon as I needed it. The next thing is town clerk. Town clerk at a 3% raise, just like I've done with everybody throughout this budget, except for the court clerk. Like I said, everybody's at a 3% raise. One of the other things that was brought to my attention looking through this was the legal fees and the engineering fees. So I know historically throughout our budgeting process, the legal fees we had at 50,000, increasing it to 51, and engineering we had at 50,000, keeping it the same. Historically, engineering, I know, has always been used as a pass-through account to be able to use to pay other things. Most of the time it was used to pay legal fees in the past. So I know one of the things that we ran on, Steve, was keeping legal fees down, and we have. It's been something that's been kept down pretty big this year. So that's why I think instead of increasing the legal fees budget, we should decrease it. We shouldn't be paying for lawyers if we don't have to. We don't need to. So I think we should decrease the legal fund balance down from 50, not up to 51, but down to 35,000. And hopefully in the future, even down further, so that we don't need that line item, as well as the engineering fees. Engineering fees from 50 to 35,000 as well. We're at 9,000 this year so far, and that's with doing the roofs. I'm not sure if we're missing any engineering fees out of that, but also the salt shed. But also, I think that in the future, we should put the engineering fees in the capital project. Why is it a separate line item? It should be coming out of the capital fund, the
Yeah, like
engineering
we did
fees.
bridge or any dam work.
Yeah, it should be calculated to that instead of budgeting 50,000 down the line. Let it be part of the capital project. To be able to fund that. The, then a couple of line items throughout the code, discuss propane, fuel, all of those things. So obviously, earlier in the year, I did all that work to get the fuel and the diesel down. That vendor didn't come through. You were gracious enough to be able to get Botini to honor the Ulster County pricing. So when I originally did that, we had about $10,000 in savings. In my budget here, I took down $4,000 in savings. Again, somewhere I think we're gonna be able to cut. Just today, I looked at a propane voucher. We were paying $2.30 for propane. We're down to $1.30 right now for propane. And with the way it's supposed to go on and, the way things are projected to go next year, I mean, we're hoping that all those fuel costs are gonna decrease even further than was projected. So I took only 4,000 when I originally had 10,000 projected from when I did my study earlier in the year. So I think I'm being conservative on that. I think that's another line item that will actually be able to save more money than I have anticipated. The next line item I go to is that brought up something to my attention again is the building inspectors, the building deputy. So first thing I started out is, a whole year salary for a building deputy that we again are banking on and hoping that we meet some expectations in regards to permitting, I think is not good for us to budget a salary based on hopes. So I think that that's a big issue. I think that we should reduce the building deputy down to about 8 weeks of training. I know it's not optimal. I know it's not best, but $43,000 for somebody's salary that we're hoping something comes in to be able to pay them, I don't think is a really good sign for us. But it's not good to budget that on somebody's salary. I also did decrease the building inspector's salary to stay the same. As you stated earlier, the building inspector is retiring, so I think we keep his salary the same. I don't think he'll really care too much about that, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Again, another line I'm in fuel. Director for Parks and Rec, I put it at a 3% increase. Again, I think a lot goes back to looking into programs, looking into what we have, and I know you did a lot of work into raising fees.
No,
and
wait a minute.
recreation
You
up.
said Director of Parks and Rec.
Recreation Director.
Recreation Director.
Recreation Director. Okay. Again, put that at a 3% increase. I think that there is the ability to get to Recreation Director to get up to be more, to be up a little bit higher to where you budgeted at. I think with increasing the programs, increasing TGTT, I think that there needs to be a little bit more push to get some more revenue in through the Recreation Department to be able to help offset parks as well, because we got to remember our Parks Department every year is basically just overhead. So I think that's another thing that we need to, I know you're increasing fees of the Recreation Department, but I think that we need to come up with some sort of new revenue streams in our Recreation Department to be able to keep giving increases to the Recreation Director, the Secretary, and
You're
everybody
aware
that works
that
there.
new streams of revenue are going to create new streams of expenses, right?
100%.
Right.
100%. But with that, I mean,
Well, not necessarily. The
Yeah,
cell
they do.
tower will
Yeah.
cost us in.
yeah, so I mean, that's where I see again a 3% increase, and then there is the ability for growth, but without increasing revenue, but by new revenue streams, not just jacking up the price on everything, because jacking up the price on everything doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get more revenue. You could have now half the amount of people not want to come just because you've raised the price of how much the camp is going to cost. So that is not necessarily an answer to be able to give people raises and to be able to think recreation is going to cover their expenses by just raising prices on things. That usually can result in a decrease in revenue by raising your prices because you outprice yourself in the market.
Yeah, but we did our research and it's not the case here.
But you haven't done it yet and seen it happen. So that's one of the things that needs to be looked at. And I think that there is the ability to do it. But I think without creating those new revenue streams and coming up with other things, it doesn't behoove us to again bank somebody's salary on something that we're hoping is going to work without seeing it actually happen. Again, same thing with park manager, a 3% increase. Again, just think we have to be, cognizant of that again, just like the court is a department that's just straight overhead. And without revenue streams to hit that off and to be able to hit up a raise of almost $10,000, that isn't good for us to do. Same thing with maintenance helpers, a 3% increase, again, pretty steady across the board on everyone, including recreation leaders, counselors, 3% increases throughout their budget. Then in the next one is 7410. 7410, which is the library. This is putting the library back up to where it has been for the last two and a half years. Putting it up to what it's been at. So that's increasing it to where it was, which was 255,000. And workers' comp staying the same as it was again, and a 3% increase to the highway employees as well. So in doing all of this and adjusting those numbers, adjusting the revenue, some up, some down, obviously decreasing some of the raises, which I'm sure people aren't going to be happy about, but it's realistically, this leaves a flat tax increase. So a 0% tax increase overall of what can be done. And as everybody keeps saying, the refunding the library is going to put me at a tax increase. It's not in my budget. It's also not increasing the levy on anybody, and it is keeping a flat tax rate. And what this does is this gives us the ability where if we do miss some marks with revenue, we do have abilities to make it up in other places. With, like I said, the fuel cost being down, I think we are going to be able to probably exceed sales tax. Like I said, I agree with you on that after doing some more research into that. I think we do have the ability to maybe hit some more interest, but I'm putting those revenues at conservative numbers. So that's where I think we should be at. I think it makes sense. And again, 0% tax increase on that budget.
Any other discussion?
Thank you, Pat, for doing all that work. I mean, that was a lot of work. I mean, I agree with a lot of Pat's points. It's still a conservative budget. And he just realigned some of the numbers after doing some additional research. So I know he worked really hard on that. And I think we got to open it up to some kind of discussion here.
Just did.
Yeah. So I tend to agree with a lot of Pat's choices here about changing some of the numbers around. The one question I had about engineering, Pat.
Yeah.
What about just the general? I mean, we do definitely do some general engineering that are not associated with projects. Not that it's that much money. It's only
That's why I kept it at 35,000.
a couple grand.
We
Yeah.
are right now at 9,000 through June at $9,198. So even if that
Yeah.
went up, if we hit the same, it'd be 18. If we went up again, we'd be at 27. So we'd still be below,
Well
even
below,
if well
yeah.
below the
Yeah.
35,000. So, and historically in 2023, we were at 11,000. So, and I know in the past that budget line item has mostly been moved to pay for legal fees. And like I said, legal fees. So in 2023, legal fees were at 86,000. In 2024, right now they're at 13,000. So even if legal fees doubled, we'd be at 26. Even if they tripled, we'd be at 39, and I have it at 35. So I think that we'll have a lot of room in those two lines,
Yeah.
which again, if we have a shortfall, again, somewhere else in the budget, we can move it from line to line like we have in the past. And I think those two have usually been our bank accounts.
Right. Source for
Yeah.
Moving revenue when we miss some expectations.
Just to be clear, that's 35 and 35, right?
35 and 35. So a total of 70, 35,000 each on legal, 35,000 on engineering.
Like I said,
gotta-
any capital projects, we could incorporate engineering fees as part of the project. cost.
It is part of the project cost, so it
Yeah.
should be in the fee, in that capital cost. I think that's where it should be.
Did you
There's
also
still
account for
money
the,
we gotta come up with.
100%, and that's money that we've saved away. I mean, you have 2.6 million in the NY class account. You still have 149,000 in our ARPA money. So capital projects.
Well, that has been expended on the roofs.
So
It just hasn't been paid out yet.
So you got $2.6 million that we have saved up, that's been saved up that, I know you say that it should be at, I think it was 5 or 10% of our budget. is what
No,
you
I didn't
said it
say
should
that.
be at. That's what the state recommends.
I
what you
said
said the last meeting.
25%.
Even if it's at 25%, that's only 500,000. So we're 2.1 million over what you say the state controller thinks we should be at, but I think that has changed. But you have 2.6 million that I don't think we'll ever spend if we fix everything.
Pat, I have some issues about what you brought up here. You brought up about 15 or 18 things on the expense side. With the building department, with hiring a deputy, George also serves as our, what is the MS4, the stormwater management. That's a pretty big duty for somebody to learn and to be able to do those things. I don't think 8 weeks would be enough for somebody to learn, you know, the building side and the stormwater management side. So I disagree with that portion, you know, cutting that budget
Well,
for the
and that-
deputy.
maybe we could find somebody that's already trained in those areas.
I mean, I think we're lucky enough to know that a year ahead of time that he's leaving.
The other issue I had with one of the things you brought up was the library budget. As a few people said today, with that proposition, it failed 2-1. It's telling you that, you know, the people of Unionville do not want to have a town library. They would prefer for library services to be a shared system. So again, you know, we're budgeting $255,000 when you have access to the other surrounding libraries, you know, at
How do we know that? We haven't had any correspondence or any advice.
Well, that was the last.
That was what, 3 years ago?
No, it was
recent.
it was this past spring.
And then I have to disagree.
When
I
did we,
mean,
did we receive this past spring?
We voted on a resolution that was defeated for $93,000.
and
Yeah,
again,
but where did that 93 come from?
That would be out of that.
It would have been out of the library line.
Mid Hudson
How do we
did
know
not
surrounding
commit.
libraries are gonna provide services that we want for 93,000? That's my concern.
That's
Don't
why it
forget
was voted down.
that was voted down, and it said we could still be restricted. It said they could still increase. And
Right.
again, this ballot measure, again, you're misrepresenting what it said. It did not say that they wanted to rejoin the Mid Hudson Library System.
It didn't say that at all, and that's not the conversation we're having.
That's what Kevin just said. It said that they wanted.
It says they don't want to build a library here or
No, you said
operate.
that they wanted shared services were your exact words.
There's options for shared.
That's
shared
not what you
services.
said. You said it said
What
that
I'm
we
saying
wanted
is
shared services.
The vote was
You can't ignore the,
Two-thirds of the town, I think it was close to 2/3 of the town also said that they don't want to send the money to the neighboring libraries either.
that wasn't the results of that.
So it lost.
Yeah.
It
Well, you
lost.
also disregarded the very first quote unquote survey or proposition, whatever you want to call it, that everybody voted for.
What are you talking about?
That they didn't want to send their money outside. of
Same
the
thing we
town.
talked about the last meeting. There's
No,
already
no,
been.
no, please explain
There
what
was a
you're
survey
talking
that went
about
out
because I have no
beforehand.
clue.
There was a survey that went out beforehand.
Survey.
Years ago.
By who?
Basically the same thing right now. The proposition is equivalent to a survey.
Proposition was a legally presented vote.
Equivalent to a survey.
No,
Yes.
I don't know where you're getting your information from, but, I would like to know
So
what
here's-
this survey. that you
I
keep
think
referring
that,
to
I think that
is.
we should continue to fund the library and then put a real referendum on the ballot. Instead of all this joke stuff that we constantly do and this round and round and fake flyers and lies and misinformation and all this other nonsense, why don't we all agree on a real referendum that says exactly what we mean?
I mean, there were signs put up that specifically said, "Will raise my taxes." My budget specifically does not raise your taxes with funding the library fully. There was a flyer that went around that said the library is going to be $500,000 in the budget. Again, nobody has ever suggested that the budget should be $500,000.
Or
So-
that the town was gonna build the library itself, which was
Exactly.
never proposed. The town has never proposed to build a
Look
library.
at some of the neighboring libraries. What's their budgets? I think Beekman's library was 600,000 or 700,000.
Have you seen that place?
You can see so Beekman, who again has how many more residents than us?
3 times.
3 times our residents. So of course their budget's gonna be 3 times what we're proposing. I mean, it's just common sense. Look at Millbrook. Millbrook is 300 and change. Okay, that's where Millbrook really is. And I listen, 100% agree that it could get to 300,000. No dispute with that whatsoever. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, 250,000 is what it's gonna be forever. It will not be 250,000 forever. I will agree with every single person that says that because nothing will stay the same for year, as in everybody's salary will continue continue to go up just like it is in here. And our revenue will hopefully continue to go up. Our expenses will continue to go up, which will be as the same way as in a library.
The taxes will continue to go up to support all this infrastructure.
Well,
It's not,
let me say something regarding that. According to the budget presented by the supervisor, the appropriations estimate was $2.7 million. Amount to be raised by property taxes, just over 1 million. So an awful lot of our appropriation money comes from sales tax, mortgage tax, and other revenue streams that feed into our revenue, total revenue. So to, single out any specific item and say that's gonna raise our taxes is not appropriate.
May I make some comments?
Why not?
And not
Thanks.
listening to the residents is also not.
I think you have to address the budget.
Right, I was gonna get back to
November
myself.
20th is the deadline for the budget. You have to vote on this tonight. You have to
3
have a,
hours.
well, you have to have a budget in final form. So either you should approve the document previously filed preliminary budget, or Pat, did you prepare a budget in a final form?
yes.
Have
I don't
people
see any
seen it?
printed copies of it here, and I didn't see
In
anybody
other
taking
words-
notes.
In other words, you have to approve something. You can't say, okay, I approve what Pat said, but I want to change 3 things. That's not in writing anywhere. And today's the deadline, so.
And here we are, none of us have seen a printed copy of what you're reflecting here. And, expect us to vote in favor of doing all that. And on the fly, you rattle off all these, changes that you want to make. And you expect us to vote on that.
Well, I only got this
Oh, stop.
15 days ago to be able to address it, like I
Okay.
asked.
Well,
No,
I
no,
offered to
it's
have
in
additional
itself.
meetings several times during that time
So
We
period
never
as
had
well.
what we planned, all those public hearings on the budget. We're supposed to have 4. We had 1.
You've had ample time to work on this.
You
You
did not-
didn't need the spreadsheet to do it. I
Yes, I
did this
did.
sitting on my desk with a pen and pencil and put it together and then handed it to the accountant to enter into the program.
No, you
And the numbers came out exactly where I thought they would.
No, you
I did.
There's no way possibly.
Okay.
So.
Well,
the-
it's
the other
simple
thing
math.
is- The other thing is.
It's
that
absolutely simple math.
Don't forget that you directly violated a order by the board that was voted on by yourself about how many.
And
public
we've
hearings you're
talked
supposed to
about that
have.
several times.
So
Pat.
you want to sit here at
No.
the beginning of the meeting and throw out all these accusations
Well-
that 3 board members did when you directly violated what this board had voted on.
None of you took any opportunity to remind me of that when the times were available to do it, neither. You come out after the fact and start slamming me. So, big help you guys are. Thanks for being team members.
I'm available
Let
any
me
day.
go back to what I suggested a few minutes ago. There's a document entitled preliminary budget, which I think was your tentative budget with some changes in it. You either should adopt that, or if Pat brought a budget tonight and all of his changes are in it and it's in proper form, you could adopt that. It's got to be one or the other. And today is the deadline.
Right.
Well, I will make a motion that we adopt the tentative budget as the 2025 budget.
Second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cardelemi,
No.
Councilman Welsh,
No.
Supervisor Frazier,
Aye.
Councilman McGivney,
Aye.
Councilman Derland.
No.
I think it's ludicrous that we are debating or even entertaining consideration of something in this manner.
I think it's ludicrous that you think that you are the only say on what.
I
goes
never
on in
said
town
that.
board.
I never said that. I have offered you opportunity after opportunity to
It's
put your
not
opinion.
just the budget discussion, Steve. It's 1,000
Oh,
other
here we go.
discussions that we've
Here we
had.
go.
I mean, it's
And Pat, you waited
crazy.
till the 23rd hour to put this all forward. You couldn't do this 2 days ago and we could have.
I only
discussed
finished this
earlier.
a day or 2 ago, so,
you had-
and you want to talk about doing things beforehand. How many things have we gotten the day of the board meeting and never discussed them before? How many times has that happened? How many times, let me ask you a question.
This
When
is
did
kinda-
you know
this is
that there
kinda
was a
big.
burn ban in town? Let me ask you a question. When did you find that out? Cause you know, I found that out by Facebook. Let me ask you a question. When did you know? Yeah, I found out by Facebook. You would think that the board members, the supervisor will let the board members know. Let me ask you a question. When did you know the public hearing wasn't scheduled for? Because I found out 15 minutes before the meeting. So you want to talk about communication? There's absolutely no communication on this board, and it stinks from the head, unfortunately. The supervisor does not communicate with any of us.
This is kind of
Of course it is. And you don't think everything else that we do on this board is important? You think just this budget is important? Everything we do is important.
discussed in length,
It should have
even
been.
if it was two days ago.
Should have been. 100% it should have been done, discussed in length. But again,
Why was
didn't
it-
have
why
enough
was it-
time.
Why did you wait until
Well, we should,
The
the
23rd
special
hour.
meeting should have been called. Like
And
you
I-
suggested.
Exactly.
And so did I.
Nobody informed me, but that it was necessary.
I asked at the last meeting for a special meeting.
No, you
Actually,
didn't.
2 meetings ago.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. And you said there's no time.
every email Steve sent, yes.
No, you asked for a public
I'm sure
hearing.
it's in the meeting.
You asked for a
I'm sure
public
it's- I'm
hearing and
sure
there
it's
was
in the
no
meeting
time to
minutes if we
schedule
play
a
it
public
back.
hearing.
So there was a motion to adopt the tentative budget, which failed 3-2. Is there another motion? Is there a document that you want to refer to? So you're gonna try to email
I
something
can
to
have
the town
Andrea
clerk
print
and
it.
have her print it?
I'll print it out.
It's gonna take a while if there's 5 copies of
Done by the
115
end of the day.
pages. It'll take, I don't know, about 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20. I don't know.
Recess while it's being printed.
Uh, the supervisor-
Well, we got another issue to deal with. So we'll table this for now. Motion to table the budget. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. The results of the surplus equipment auction came in. And I gotta find the pages so I don't screw up the amounts. Okay. So the loader came in at $12,000. And the pipe fittings at $650. I spoke with Ed this morning. It wasn't exactly what we were hoping for, but it's close enough that we feel we should
Proceed.
go ahead and approve this sale.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we accept the offers of the bids and, sell the material, which is surplus already.
Second on that, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
That's the loader we had at the recycling center.
Right.
It's older than I am.
Yeah. I think what we'll do at this point, I'll entertain a motion to recess. Second on that?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, folks, we'll recess until these papers are printed. Entertain a motion to resume the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
I printed out the budget that I prepared for everyone. You guys will have a copy of it now, along with a Word document that shows the changes that were made, what was made, what was lowered, what was adjusted, on each line item in the budget. So I gave you all of that. Again, sorry I didn't have it printed before, but now we do. So if you guys have any other questions. I'll make a motion to approve the budget submitted by myself. That was just stamped in by Andrea, received November 20th, 2024.
I'd like to discuss this.
Take a
If somebody
first.
seconds it, yeah.
All right, I'll second and then you can discuss.
Yeah, I'd like discussion on this. There's a whole list of changes here. Literally just sat down in front of this budget. We've been looking at the other budget for about 3 months now. We're sitting down in this new budget with all these changes. And for a board to try to make a decision without reading through this, I don't see how we can. It's unfortunate. You know, I also see that the only board member that is not going to be on the board next year is authoring the budget for next year that the rest of the board is going to be stuck with. And I don't think that's right either. That's my feelings on this. I don't know if anything else has been changed in this budget besides what these changes are on the sheet of paper. There's no way I'm going to be able to go through all this paperwork in the short amount of time we had. So I don't know how we can vote on the budget without having time to look at it, read it, and make sure it's correct.
I have some comments as well. I was elected to this position to take this town in a different direction. And that's what I had done with this budget here. I put together a solid budget and we have seen that, you know, not only the residents support what I intend to do here, we saw again this past election, they reinforced that motion. They made a very clear message that they do not want to fund a library here in Unionville. And they also have rejected the point of view of Mr. Cardellemi, not once, but twice. And here we are with his budget in front of us being asked to approve it. So with that, and anybody else have anything to say?
Never voted on any budget this year yet, right?
Excuse me?
We never voted this year on a budget.
Well, that's what we're doing now. We're gonna entertain this here. Well, you never gave me the changes that you wanted to present to the budget.
At the last meeting, I read out probably almost every single one of these.
Again, those changes needed to be discussed and approved by the town board. Not one of you made a motion to put them into the town budget, which is how it's supposed to be done. If you folks are so clever and understand this budget process so well, why didn't you do that?
We tried having a discussion and your response was, well, then go figure it out yourself.
I didn't say that. That's absolutely false.
Steve,
I don't
you're
think
the
he's
leader.
entirely wrong.
I am the leader, but at the time, I led with my proposed budget. It is your obligation to suggest and make a motion to present changes into it. And we discuss, and then we have a vote on whether that change is going to be made. None of you did any of that. It's not my job to read your mind and make these motions for you.
Did we not try having discussions? Did I not bring up at the last meeting?
Did you ever make a motion to make a change?
Did I not? First of all, don't interrupt.
No.
Second of all, did I not say to you at the last meeting, let's decrease the board member salary? Let's decrease the judge's salary. Let's talk about the clerk's salary. Your response to every single thing that any of us said was, then go figure it out yourself.
I did
So
not
you know what
say
you
that.
got? You got what you asked for.
Okay,
For
well,
me to
there's
figure it
a
out myself,
motion that's been
and I did
seconded.
it.
Well, here we are. last possible day at 9:30 at night. We gotta do something. We can't ignore it.
Got a motion.
We got a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilman Cardelemi,
Yes.
Councilman Welsh,
Yes.
Supervisor Frazier,
No.
Councilman McGivney,
Nay.
Councilman Derland.
Yes.
Right in defiance of the will of the people here.
Did you guys even look at the budget? You're just assuming that everything's correct here?
I actually talked to Pat with it about the budget at
You
length.
approved, you were able to read this?
Me and him talked about it at length, about the.
Well, why
very
didn't you discuss it
specific-
with the rest of us?
You were able to review
We
this.
came to
You
discuss
were
it
not-
tonight, just like at the last board meeting, we came to discuss and you immediately shut us down every single time. You're like, oh, bring it, bring it.
How do you know this changes that? Read it.
Me and him have
Comment
been
on
through
town
this
issues,
budget
anyone?
Extensively.
Name and address, please.
New York Town, law stipulates that the supervisor is supposed to put out the budget and the supervisor is supposed to call working meetings. Our supervisor didn't either. Nice job, Pat. I find it interesting that the very same people who complain about the library are the same people who complained about the summer camp at Timor. They complained, Lizette was in charge then. They complained that the camp was losing money and costing us tax dollars. Now that Timor camp is oversubscribed and generating money for Unionville, they're decidedly quiet on this and aren't willing to give credit where credit is due for the foresight of setting up the Timor summer camp. I fully expect the library will arrive at the same conclusion. If the town's elected officials worked with the library to understand and manage these costs, I would expect that the Unionville Library would be an asset to the town and be more cost effective than the Mid-Hudson Library Association. I support moving ahead with the library, would encourage the Unionville Library trustees to send each person in Unionville a library card. The referendum really wasn't a referendum, but more like an opinion survey. Interesting and biased based on how it was worded. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Just a clarification, earlier you said
Just need your name and address, please.
Amy Watkins, 24 Cunningham Drive. If I get any toilet paper, we'll know why. So earlier you said was that the attorney tabled my request to transfer the library funds. Was the entire board involved in that decision?
I think what we discussed was he was gonna do some research into it and we'll discuss it at the next meeting just so we can get a clear picture.
Tonight, though, right? Prior to this meeting, did he say that? Like, did you guys know that that was gonna be the
The
plan?
exact wording, no, it was not necessarily about the money. Just so you know, the exact wording was something about any decisions on the library until next year. Sorry, Jeff, I don't want to quote you. Quoting you. So it wasn't necessarily in regards to the fund, it was just in general.
Okay, because I don't get responses to my emails, so it's really hard to tell until I come to the meeting and ask the questions directly. Typically, the responses I get are not tonight, so I appreciate that. But I would just ask that, because we are chartered, that you would reconsider that and talk about it amongst yourselves, because you have put it into the budget. That budget was passed, and I feel that moving forward with requesting our funds to be transferred into our account is the next logical step, which New York State asks all chartered libraries to do. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Paula Young, 36 Burbank Club Road. Firstly, it apparently is not going to increase anyone's taxes to allow the budget monies to be given to the library. That's good news. Secondly, if you build it, they will come. We have a brand new attitude for this library with a lot of people who've given hours and hours of unpaid time to create something new. You're right. We're never going to be the Beekman Library. We're not probably ever going to be the Millbrook Library, but we're going to be the Unionville Library. It's going to have things that are different in it. We have ideas. It's a gathering place. People will come. More people that know about the library will have little kids who might want to swim and might have little kids that want to ride horses. I've noticed a lot of vitriol tonight against the former supervisor. I heard people say things and use words with inflections that were just downright hateful. And that's ridiculous. This is about a library. This isn't about getting even or proving someone right or saying that we're better than the former supervisor. It's silly. We're adults. This is a library we're talking about, guys. We have the money. It's not going to raise any. To spend money to go into the Mid-Hudson library system, you think that's not going to go up? They want $96,000 now, which apparently was voted down. They're going to want a lot more later. Let's try this. If it's a complete balls up, believe me, everyone will admit it because we'll know it. But what if it's really good? You have people who are willing to go there, like that young lady in the blue who I've seen give countless hours despite of her job, and the young lady in the green. Let's give it a shot. We have people here who can use it. They just don't know they can because we've never allowed them to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Commissioners area 2536 Wingdale Mountain Road, Brooklyn, New York, 12570. So, the library budgeted $245,118 last year. That's $50 per capita. In comparison to the $93,787 that we had been paying, our former supervisor terminated that contract with Mid-Hudson Library in 2020. That same dollar amount of $93,787 was offered back to the town of Unionville residents. That's a difference that's $19.53 per person. It's 39% below the $245,118. If we're struggling with other line items, where to get money from, and who's getting a raise and who isn't getting a raise, every allocated dollar matters. The library set up a library building fund. It's a 501c3 that is owned and operated by our former town supervisor. It went into existence in 2021, a year after she ended the contract. At most, they spend 15 hours, according to the IRS, working on that 501c3 that's supposed to raise money for the library. To date, it has raised $0, has zero assets. I suggest that if we have citizens that decide they would like to have a library, perhaps their 501c3 donate the land and subsidize the building of a library and whatever else they like. But I don't think it should be done with taxpayer dollars, not when we can't afford to increase somebody's salary, and yet the cost of living and groceries continue to rise. We're not going to have new people. George is going to retire. Who's coming in at that kind of salary? When Jake left, our new Jake didn't get that same rate of pay. Our former supervisor paid him less money. It's not okay. They deserve to be paid a fair working wage. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hey, Betsy Moss, Clove Road. I didn't know that they were talking about me in the back of the room. And I hate to see things denigrate into personal attacks. This library has been something we've discussed for a long time. The numbers are wrong. It's 227. It's 229, 7 or 228, 220, 227.9. $50 per head, 45.58 is our population. We had the discussion, just to remind you, and it's not all the former supervisor, because we had a very strong team who got along really well together and got a lot done while we were working together. It wasn't the former supervisor, majority rules. And we had a great time trying to find our way through And we worked hard at it because Mid-Hudson Library System told us that we would be paying as much as their people were paying in the future. They would never let us pay for usage, which we wanted to do at the same cost they had, and they refused. So we said, well, what are we going to do? You know, they won't let us pay for usage. They want us to pay as much as their people are paying ultimately. We determined it would have been financial malpractice to take the short run, which is next year we'll pay 94 and this is 227, when in 5 years, 7 years, and 10 years, they would have us be paying out to them more than our own library would cost. We also felt that our team, no matter how dysfunctional this one might be, would still manage our own library better than, and our own money better than sending that money out of town. That's what we did. We had a consultant come in and talk to a lot. We had a lot of community engagement meetings before we made this decision. We made the decision because we thought it was best for everybody. And at that point, a lot of people were behind it. Now, it's not going to make your taxes go up. This board will still manage it better than sending your money away. And 2 years ago, the resolution that failed by 56%, people said, we don't want our money to go away. It shouldn't be personal about me. We work together as a really good team. We know that any one of our boards will manage better than those people on the outside. You should have faith in them. By wanting to send your money elsewhere means that you don't think these guys can do a good job. And I don't care who's on this board. I think they worked hard to get here and they still will do a better job with your money than sending it out to Mid-Hudson Library System, especially when you have a group of wonderful trustees running it. So please stop making it personal, analyze it objectively, put your faith in the people that you have on the board to manage the money, and put your faith in the trustees to make this thing something you like. Give them a chance. Oh, yes, I am not the owner of the Unionville Library Fund. I am the vice president. Peter Kulowicz is the president. It is a 501c3. It is a nonprofit organization. We have had a lot of trouble getting pledges from people. They say, we'll give you some money. They have to get their act together and let this thing roll. When the thing is open and starts rolling, guess what? We have an awful lot of people that have promised us money, including the DeForest, as you all saw, already gave us $20,000.
Did you wrap it up, please?
Yes, I'd be delighted to. But so it's heading in a very good direction. It is a 501c3. Any donations are tax deductible, and we will welcome anything that you guys might give in any amount once this whole thing is over and we can get going. So thank you.
Anyone? Yes.
Kevin Harrington, 561 Chestnut Ridge Road, Dover Plains, New York, 12522. Interesting statements up here from the podium tonight. The majority does rule. The majority in the last election said they want to change on the town board. Majority said they do not want to own and operate a public library. Nothing could be more simply worded. When this library idea first came up, certain people in town were told, I was one of them, that this library would be funded by gifts from wealthy people. We haven't gotten any gifts from wealthy people, though we have a lot of wealthy people involved in the library itself. They didn't seem that it was such a worthy thing to donate the money to, apparently. Thank you.
Anyone else? Ma'am, I've already been up. You don't get a second time. No. Yes, there is. It's your rule. Yeah. You don't get up a second time. You say what you say and you're done. Well, it's the end of, if no one else is. Well, I wish you'd get on the microphone. Yeah, listen to the question and answer session. We'll find that out at a different time. Any other comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Our next meeting will be here December 4th at 7:30 PM. Actually, we're going to have a 7 o'clock public hearing on the RD10 code change.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks for coming, everybody.